host. All right, welcome everybody to the Red Wheelbarrow Poetry Collective for this very special reading by the incredible Bree Bailey. I got to know Bree at the start of the pandemic when we were in Poems That Don't Suck together, Megan Falley's online writing workshop, and we've been fast friends since then. She is an incredible poet and an incredible human and friend and cheerleader for other poets in the community. She's loved, rightly so, for her warm spirit and energy that she brings to everyone she meets. And she has reached the pinnacle in having her debut collection been selected by Right Bloody last year for the Jack McCarthy Book Prize. So her debut collection, Wailing on Whisper Street, is coming out in April this year. It's available for pre-order. We'll pop links in the chat soon. So if you haven't already pre-ordered it, please do. Those of you in South Africa, you can get Right Bloody books via Loot. So once it's out, you'll be able to order it via that. And I've had very good success with getting books with a little bit of a wait, but not too long via that. And yeah, I know, because I've seen some earlier drafts of it, that it's going to be incredible. And this is a real treat for all of us. So over to you, Bree.
All right, I am shaking like a bit, like, I don't know, a leaf. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for coming. It means the world to me. It also means the world to me to be able to debut this beautiful collection with you all today, as well as sharing it internationally for the first time, which is also so cool to hit so many things at once. But it feels right because Melissa's amazing, the Red Wheelbarrow is amazing, so thanks again. All right, let's dig in, y'all. As many of you know, poetry is really depressing, so I apologize if there's a little bit of tinge of sadness. I promise I will lift you up as best as I can through my own awkwardness, or you know, just smiling at you a lot. It tends to work. All right, first poem I would like to share today is called Growing Up. Growing up. Growing up is my brother was killed by his new roommates once my family shut doors, tired of the fact he couldn't be an adult. Like an alligator ripping my throat and then bashing my bleeding face against Floridian asphalt. Oh wait, that was my brother. Like the end of the month bills and hoping it was the first month full of groceries and a fridge made of no one's fault. Like Section 8 housing, like Dios te bendiga after someone too young dies, like a snowstorm that doesn't let me bury my father in gentle ground, snowstorm that doesn't let me brown bag an avalanche of cloaked alcoholism, like running, like shrugging off therapy, like the violence of a bellyache, like brunch mimosas and me at the bottom less. Like marrying a feminist who becomes silent when his frat brothers make rape jokes. Like punchlines and hymnlines bursting and truths pounding despair. Like realizing I am not dead yet. Like knowing authenticity is better than faking the smile. Full-figured with 6 figures. Book deals, like sending care packages with hand-drawn cards and boot scoot keychains across smiles, like gold foil starry stickers on letters to my aunt's sick dog, like finally saying the word therapy, like finally affording therapy, finally affording to be honest in therapy, like 9th grade friendship that survives the bus stop and makes it to suburban grass and realizes it's better smoked because it's never evergreen. Like cheers, we made it, chingonas. Like realizing mama's breath isn't a flower but would be the most beautiful. Like gratitude for my siblings' growth and fresh roots. Like arriba, abajo, por el centro, por el dentro. like coming clean in the 2 a.m. calls, like celebrating a mundane Sunday because morning always comes, like screaming lyrics at the top of my lungs, a good mid-afternoon fuck, like lo siento, I forgive them, I forgive you, like a phoenix hiccuping laughter from ashes, like a reader's entertainment and my truth, like, let's be honest. Yeah. Moving on. I think being a poet is and writer is also being a reader. Of what I read, I have so many that writers that I love. Many of them are on this call, which is just beautiful to me. But some of them unfortunately didn't make the call. They were too busy. One of them is Hanif Abdurraqib. And I wrote this poem that was in the Birmingham Review, and it's called Admission of My Most Expensive Fault. It's a double broken golden shovel, which means that every side, the lines, the first word of the lines of the poem make out their own lines to another poem. And that is one of Hanif's poems. Admission of My Most Expensive Fault. How desperate my ears strain to the pulsing hymn that isn't small. Gather up its spit, hitch my throat, I can't shake it. We've abandoned native motherlands. Foolish, become sad, funny. Become new dollars. Brownstone, empty Badia. How because of early lessons of loss, there's an uneven, jagged silence of generational poverty. My insides plump with clash of cash. Can all rich distractions make me feel less poor inside? Undress these charmeuse desires like a charlatan's wealth. Split two things from my clown pout. What is stage and what of our bodies? Okay, I will be moving on. This one is a poem that's in the book, and it's earlier in the book, and this was actually prompted by a prompt genius herself, who's on this call, beautiful poet Melissa Sessence. And this poem is entitled Hormones and Clapton During First Period. During junior year of high school, my English teacher is the hottest preppy punk mid-20-something-year-old we have ever seen. He teaches my advanced class poetry, and at 16 years of life, I know it's all about feelings, love, and heartbreak. I'm not wrong, but I'm not right either. I have my period, and my blood red focus is not staining my pants or having to stand up to pass papers. It's creative writing day, my favorite. My teacher says he created a playlist to get our juices flowing. We all thirst for him without needing much help. The first song is by Hall and Oates. We scribble like gleeful squirrels, so delirious on what makes our dreams come true. Next up, a ballad. Themes are getting real serious as Leanne Rimes tells us she can't live without someone. I'd be lost if I lost you. I rhyme when I write poems because it's easy. Blue, true, glue. I can stay on this page forever. Suddenly mid-rhyme, 7 seconds of a song comes on, and like a jukebox, I need to stand. My eyes hell-bent for an exit as the pad between my legs soaks up my feelings. Eric Clapton is starting to tell us about how strong he must be and how he must carry on, and all I want to do is be carried away. Period be damned if this is what finally becoming a woman is. Witness blood smeared against my pants. Know that this song only reminds me of my brother's blood lost in brain stew brown puddles 5 years that September. When we went to place a flower cross memorial at the site 3 months fresh after my brother's murder, my uncle remarked while lighting a Newport, "Wow, all that brown right there is dried blood. You ever see that much brown before? I sure haven't." Do you know what 1.5 Uzi gallons of a life on the side of an isolated southern road looks like? It looks like earthy tears in heaven. Soil, leaves, and human life leakage pooled between the toes of a little sister's sandals as she watches her mother collapse into the brownest of all dirt. I cry my way out of the room of teenagers. Some kind of sad siren in a blurry burst. Brilliant and crimson, and all any of the boys can think about is, guess it must be that time of month. Okay, let's lighten it up a bit, yeah? I will read a poem that was really fun to write. It kind of starts telling a story and then it ends up in a list, which is always fun. This poem is entitled "Wash the Dishes." I wash the dishes, cake my nails in grime from some stew or chili I made when I was too angry or sad to have a conversation. Sometimes I cook or clean or do something with my hands to channel why I feel the way I do, or why I don't feel the way you do. Anxiety has a way of making you feel useless or productive, or sometimes uselessly productive. I mean to say, sometimes I wash the dishes so that I can wash the thoughts away, wash the worry, wash the doom, the dread, the dead, wash the filth of what ifs, submerge all of my sadness. Sometimes I scream into the bubbles of dirt, hoping to see a cleaner reflection at the bottom of the sink. I shout into the dirty so that the dishes, the laundry, the thoughts can be somewhere cleaner, unsoiled. A pancake prayer in a small, still, hollow basin chores me into something. Slow, spick and span, catch speed, dawn, bubbles, sponge, plates, wash the dishes. I become a grocery chore list. Honey, do me. This is an instructional poem. A lot of poets do this, and I find that some of the best instructions that we don't seem to ever take are uplifting instructions. So my goal here is to uplift you. It's called 10 Steps to Stop Yourself from Drowning, a poet's edition. 1, don't read sad poetry. Words will meld and grab the reach of your bones of your metaphor. It's the booze of the bard. It will weigh you down. 2, swear to be good and pretend you're God. Walk on water and make believers out of your begotten. 3, don't fall in love with devices of fuck me over plastic. Cheap canoes will only crack. The only thing that will save you already exists within you. 4, leave voicemails even if someone might not listen. Write the letters, mail the packages, and hold no resentment. Do something to surprise another, because butterflies and tummies can sometimes be life jackets for those near sharks ready to feed across the pond. 5, make sure to save yourself before trying to save someone else. Words mean nothing if there's not anyone who gets the chance to hear them. 6, learn to swim, sorry, I'll start. 6, learn to swim even when you are drenched and dampened from dread. Learn CPR. Continue the poetry regardless. 7, know the risk and danger of natural waters. You think that shit can kill you? It can, but you're God, aren't you? 8, build up fences around anything that may cause you to submerge yourself again. 9, make so much noise it fills your lungs and threatens to shoot geysers of grief everywhere. There is nothing silent about how you will leave this earth. 10, don't go at this alone. Look for a lifeguard. Next poem is an Abecedarian. An Abecedarian is a poem where the letters of each line of the poem follow the English alphabet, so A to Z. And this poem is called Love Actually, an Abecedarian. All the poems I write have a piece of you in them, but this one is my way of saying hi. Call this one yours. Dearest love, everyone's been writing for years on end. Go on with your gorgeous words tied together, honoring or humiliating someone. I wrote this one for you, just for you. Know this, it's love, and it's you and me, not just in the poems that are shared between us, often, or in the lyrics of snores on pillows, but in the way my pen sings its softest song. Quiet like an earth shake, rumbling at its drum core, so badly wanting to undress you. Veins and quatrains on display, away with words when you first said you're my biggest fan. A stranger solving for X of the mess and beauty within me. You, the thesis in every melody from A to Z. A few more. Okay, this one is called The Dentist, which is really funny because I'm in my later 30s, I guess I can say now. But I'm wearing braces. I have braces, so that's why S's are a little difficult for me right now. But yeah, this one is to my former dentist. The Dentist. He holds my sober for this appointment brain in his sterile hands. Mr. Machismo with kind blue Letterman eyes. All his nurses practice their smile, straighten backs of teeth, pucker flirt when he walks by. My hysterical sobs slice his gendered bullshit. I have a knack for turning frat parties into funerals. He pretends to see something precious in my tremble, my high deductible or pity from my waiting room panic attack. He asks, what's the one thing that makes a young woman with long legs crutch like a meek lamb west of Slaughter's Lane? I struggle more with his presumptive ask of only one thing that his stare that I struggle more with his presumptive ask of only one thing than his stare down my shirt. How do I say my ex-lover with similar eyes to the dentist takes up an entire galaxy of pain and caused me to neglect simple oral hygiene and humane affirmations? How every day I find it hard to brush off that women like me are being told our sacrifice parts are our ugliest. How contrary to all of this, I find myself most beautiful and clean because I cry the hardest in the shower where I can see my robbed nakedness. How do I say hi? My name spells out a trigger warning. Landing on deaf ears, Dr. Echo implores further, and something moves under my rib cage. Nostrils splayed, teeth shaking in their rotten, abandoned sockets, and I say, the sound. I hear it all too close for comfort. And what I meant to say is, I can hear burnt rubber tracks, tabs left unpaid, lowered caskets, heartbeats stop and speed on monitors. I'm in a car suspended, Frogger turned near drunk ballerina, and the sound of my mother's moans scare the ants to ginger deathbeds. He must see it then, a flash in my pregnant mouth of decay and secrets. He asked if he can hold my ears and scaffold the silence. I cry uglier and whisper, weep, please. I cling to his latex sincerity and beg to be healed and wake up from life destroying cavities I keep creating for myself. Only a few more, two more. This poem is called Frailty. Or two more, I think two more. I can do one more if I need to. This poem is called Frailty. Frailty. All my 30-something years of life, I thought old people were frail bags of bones dragging at snail speed because they no longer could go fast like lightning. No drive, no direction, broken down cars without engines, depleted machines, lost in time. I scoff at their inner clocks. How weak. And one winter, though, I came to realize they are practicing the joy of making their bodies and hourglasses slow down. Holding the sunshine before admiring the sunset. Having conversations before deploying any metal. How weak I was to think the wiser would be willing to do anything with their bodies other than crave. And this poem is entitled, I Scramble to Recite Bell Hooks When My Daughter Asks Me About Our Dead Family. Because children can be curious green, kites untethered with words and language at the tip of their tongues, balloon buoyancy floating and how they question what goes missing. The forgotten toy in the lunchroom, the uncle she never met in the picture, the father she never met in the picture, the baby in her mama's mind's bathroom. They expect anyone who looks like a sturdy skyscraper to walk taller after they dance on elder graves, place pictures on the mantle, and write all these sober poems to the drunken dead. And because I cannot tell her that I might die too, I tell her, Bell Hooks says, we only learn to lie because we are too hungry and too lonely to hurt those that love us. My daughter isn't 3 yet and doesn't speak English well and blinks back. Bell Book, Mama? But her mama is a poet, so I laugh and place my grub gray ink-stained paws next to hers, and I speak to soothe and to make hurt that hangs above my fireplace cool the embers of my grief. Today I choose to meditate on love. I tell her there's a melted ice cream living in the dirty chest of my heart. There's a tooth so loose I keep swallowing my youth when she begs for answers. There's a bookshelf with unreturned books and a library called Every Person Your Mommy Loves Dies. And yes, that's the truth. But lucky for her, the library is closed because the last book on how to live an extraordinary life is too busy falling in love with her and her big questions and etching it all down like a family tree uplifted in bloom for the very first time. And I'll do one more, just because you asked. Or is it too early? Melissa, tell me if I still have time. Yeah.
Keep going.
Okay. This is a poem that ends my book. And I wanted to end it today, really, because I think we have to understand that impermanence is what's everlasting. But damn, life's beautiful, right? So thank you for being here. Thank you for loving poetry enough. This poem is called I Have to Accept That All of It Will Not Last. In the spring sangria sunrise, in the quiver of my lover's caress, under the oversized brown Ray-Bans, in the embarrassment of too many vodka sodas and big fat fingers that text too much, in the heat of kissing a girl in the closet, how ironic, in the bad dream and too often visitor in my lover's head, in the kind orbs of the shaggy-haired lead singer, scream bleeding his heart toward mine, in the of a live poetry reading, in the pesto piled dishes in the sink, in my pandemic pregnancy in a labored mass, in my torment after my absent father dies, in the flutter of a Boy Scout's proposal, in the empty uptown, downtown apartment, in the candlelight of my baby's first birthday, in the honesty of the first sober email, in the drunk of a scrawled letter, in the summer, winter, fall, I have to accept that all of it will not last. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's all unmute and clap for Bree, please. Woo!
Some Bree.
Incredible. Oh, what a treat. Thank you so much, Bree. It was amazing.
I'm still shaking.
So
one
we.
shake and read.
Oh, gorgeous. I would love to open the floor for questions now. If anyone wants to ask Bree anything or comment or just shout out a favorite line, anything like that, you can stick a hand up. If you're shy, put your question in the chat. I have put the links to Bree's pre-orders on Right Bloody's website as well as Bree's website. So find those higher up in the chat. Anybody who wants to be the first brave question asker. Sita, hi.
I have a question. Hi, everyone. Bree, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your poetry with everyone. I know that I feel like I speak for everyone when your poetry was beautiful and your images were just amazing. I have a question. I'm wondering what poem of the poems that you read to us did you find was the hardest to write?
That is such a good question. Ooh, Sita, ask that all the time to like every person because I want to know their answers. Oh, I think growing up, the first poem I started with, which is why I read it first. I wanted to get it over with. Because I want to familiarize myself with the discomfort of the honesty of that poem. And I think that that's where the poem is, right? So that one most excites me. It was the hardest to write, and it was written in the shower, or the first lines came to me, and it was because I was really upset at someone, and I was like, I can't be upset with them. They were raised this way too. It was someone in my family, and it just made me think about all of the things that go into growing up, and it turned what started as a really angry poem. Just why was I dealt these cards? Why? Turned into, you have to make the most out of it. The thing about life is it's going to keep stacking. And we have to get better. We have to become more honest, more familiar with what is discomfort. So while it was the hardest to write, after I wrote that poem, I've only been writing hard poems or really, really difficult poems. I've never wrote a not difficult poem since. So find your most difficult poem and write it, and then holy hell, you go you go from there. Just keep that energy.
Was it like a breakthrough?
Yeah, it was. I really think, or rather, it was a diss track that started in the shower. I don't know. I guess other folks might call those breakthroughs, but it was, yeah. It was the first time I analyzed a relationship that I've never analyzed in another poem. And I felt comfortable enough to be on a level where I could be honest with how I portrayed it. And so that, I think, was the breakthrough. And I wanted to be kind to it more than mean to it. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Of course, no, thank you. That was an amazing question.
Thank you, Cisa. Excellent way to get us going. All right, next I see a hand up from Charles. Hi.
Hello. Beautiful job, as always. I love how you incorporate Spanish in your poems. I was curious, though, about the cover. How did the cover come about? Because when I saw it, it didn't really feel like the poet that I've come across. So I'm curious to hear what happened with that.
Yeah, that I love that. The cover, I don't, yeah. So the cover came out, my publisher does this like survey, and kind of gets a feel for what it is you want. And I don't know about everyone on this call, but I hope we all hope to live forever. So I hope this isn't my first book. But the beauty about writing that always fascinated me since I was little is that writing makes you immortal, right? Like your book will outlast you, even though we're going to live forever, Charles. Our books are there. And if this was my only book, I wanted it to be a representation of where I came from and what it took and how I walk into it. I still walk into it, and it's still part of me. And I mean, I didn't say like I gave my publisher some images that were nothing like my cover, or everything like my cover came out the way it did, and it blew me away, because it was more post-apocalyptic almost. And I was like, holy shit, yes, that's what I want to do. And I have other incorporations in which I want to hopefully lighten that cover as I continue my journey. And just maybe make it a little brighter. But still have the same tones. So it's really just coming from it and going into it. And I think a lot of my poems kind of still circulate that. I hope. I love you, Charles. Wings forever. I think we were the alliteration ring. I don't know. I never turned in homework. Sorry, Melissa.
Oh, excellent. That was another great question. Next up, Jacques.
Hello, that was a fabulous reading. I loved it. I hope you can hear me.
I can.
Oh, that's a good start. Okay, I'm not sure. So I was very moved by the poem about the poem of instructions for aspiring poets. And what struck me is that poetry is both risky, but it's also the thing that makes you safe. It's like poetry is the choppy water, but it's also the lifeguard. I don't know if that's your feeling. I mean, it's a beautiful paradox. I don't know if you want to say something about that or what it felt like to write that poem, because that really struck me. It's very beautiful and feels very true.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. That's awesome. You guys are bringing it, putting me in hot seat. That poem conceptually started, I'm deathly afraid of drowning, and water. And so I think that's what it feels like a lot when, maybe others might not relate to this, but sometimes your irrational fears are what feels realist when your mind creates all of these. I guess that's part of irrational fears. But I started looking up actual steps to stop yourself from drowning, and I took it from that. Like I think one of the lines I put was, you have to save yourself first, and that's literally like what is in the instructions on not to drown. And I thought like that's something I forget. And the ending line, actually, when it's in my book and when you see it on print, it ends with life, and then there's a slash for a lifeguard, because I want folks to look for another life, but also to look for their guard, like as well, because you're what starts your day and ends your day, right? So it's really important that you have that inner peace.
Mm.
But thank you.
So much.
Oh, and Charles, I want to just like funnily add, there were so many covers. Miriam and I are on the same, Miriam's here and we're on the same press, but there were so many covers that were sent to me that were just not it. And like one of them was like, it looked like an instructional manual and it was like in this weird text. And I was like, it looked like Comic Sans kind of, and it was just like this dangling image of a baby. It's like, no. No, I don't want to be known as dangling baby poet. But yeah, so there's a lot.
Dangling baby poet.
That's gonna be my TikTok handle, don't worry.
Oh yeah, I love it. Nicolette.
Hi, thank you for such a beautiful reading. My question is about, I'm curious what your approach was like when you were putting together the book and choosing an order for your poems, because there are poems that, when you're writing poems, they exist on their own, but then when you're creating a book form, that's a whole other unique layer to a book process, and like that's potentially a whole other narrative or a whole poem in itself. So I'm curious what your process was like for that.
Yeah, that's a fabulous question. And I think that's such an important question to ask of writers, because I think everyone has their own process and every book has its own kind of vision or what the author conceives of it. For this collection, I really wanted to kind of chronologically place just the life itself, because kind of throwing back to what Charles' question was, I do have ideas of kind of continuing some poems and then actually a nod to the post-apocalyptic. You heard it here first, but I really want to start a sci-fi series. So maybe in 10 years, come find me. Dangling Baby Productions. But nonetheless, I really felt like to tell this story of womanhood, I had to start from the beginning. And I had to really play a nod to the women that came before me, before I got into myself. And that a big part of that is really my mom and just the women in her life. So the start of the book almost felt like it was conceived before I knew it. And thankfully when, and I just went in that chronological way. And when I gave it to my editor, they said, yes, this works. This works well. And thankfully they did. But they did say that there were too many poems, which I thought was interesting. So don't do this, writers. There were too many poems within a certain period. And they thought that that would bore readers. Like, you don't want to stay in the same period for too long, because then people really pay attention to the details. And if those details aren't, lasting later, you're screwed. So it was just like an interesting critique that I thought like, oh, wow, yeah, I could lose this junior year of high school. I'm not junior year of high school, right? And it was just interesting to see it from that level of what would excite someone who's actually reading it, rather than how when I place my book, I'm always placing it as someone who's writing it, rather than someone who might just be here to be entertained. Because at the end, we're entertaining them. Right, ideally. Yeah, great question.
Brilliant answers so far. Next up, let's see Miriam put you on the hot seat. Hey.
Hey, I actually don't have a question. I just never want to miss an opportunity to tell you how much I love you, and you're incredible and brilliant and beautiful and such an inspiration. And I know, there are many of us who wouldn't be the people or writers we are today without your love and your continued support. So, no questions, just love.
I love you so much. Go buy Miriam's book too.
Yeah, Built by Storms. Also coming out in April. Is there anybody else with a question? There were some hands that went up and down. Anybody who still wants to ask something or say something? No? Okay. Oh, there's Ed. Always a last minute taker.
Hey, Bree, that was fantastic. Thank you. There are many. It's the first time I've heard you read, so there are many things running around in my head. But I love it that you don't shy away from the difficulty in your poems, and yeah, there's also a joy somewhere in the poetry, which is amazing. If I have a question, I mean, I loved the instructions, that instructional poem. There are many others, but I wondered about the dentist. How did you know when that critique, it felt like a critique, loved some of the phrases in that poem. It just sort of created this layered sense of someone and your response. How did you know when that poem was right? Because it sort of just walks a fantastic line. It's not heavy-handed. It's sort of, but it just like really says what you want to say. Sorry, long-winded.
What a great question. And this poem came about actually when I was reading. It was the morning before I was reading for Sita's wonderful online reading for her book. So thanks for being here again, Sita. And I was at the dentist, and again, I think poetry really, our gift as poets, is to make kindness where folks don't find it, or to show really the full moon, right? I think it's who is it, Rilke, or who says even when we see the half moon, we're only looking at the half moon, but it's still the full moon. Or when we see just a little bit, and as poets, we have to uncover it all. And what shocked me in the moment of when I was witnessing it, as a poet witnessing life, was that I hated this man prior to that visit. Like, I was already done, and I was already figuring out this email I was going to write to the board of whatever teeth people exist, right? Like, I was ready to just do it, because I was like, how dare he? And in a moment when he just saw how sad I was, and I told him, I think he realized I wasn't there, and I wasn't playing into his game either, and I wasn't going to let him touch my mouth. It was just like a standoff. He was like, what is going on? And I told him I was scared. I was just like, this isn't terribly another irrational fear, I guess. And he was so kind. And he had the nurses come in, and while he was doing his procedure, the nurses were holding my ears, because I told him the sound was scary. And I wanted to write a poem that encapsulated how cruel people can be, or how typical on their bullshit they can be, right? Just filling the part of whatever they are. But when you can communicate and break it down, I think most people will save each other. And I'd like to believe in that. And this poem was me telling him, hey, I'll save you too. Because he saved me, and he helped me through a really difficult procedure, when I wanted to ruin his career. So I still don't think he's a great human, but I will save him. And I wanted to, when I was writing it, I wanted to hit that. I wanted to hit that it was more me too. I was fitting my feminist, I will take you down, I hate you, so we were both in our parts, and we came together, and it was okay. And it made me totally feel better in that moment. So I wanted to pay nod to that. So I hope I did. His name was Dr. Echo as well, which was just perfect. I didn't make that up. He was meant to be written about.
Wow. Thank you. Very generous answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with the last question? I wonder, Bree, what are you most looking forward to about having this book baby out in the world? What are you hoping it's going to do in people's hands? How does it feel to be here on the cusp of this moment?
Such a good question. And the first answer, the only answer is I hope it allows people to just open up, tell the truth, be honest, be a little bit more honest, be honest and kind together. I think it's possible. I think the world needs it. And while writing about it is so difficult, and was it Jock that mentioned the safety and the danger of it, or kind of there, and it's that for me. It's so difficult to write about it, all of these honest truths, or my truths, right? And that's, at the end of the day, it's your truth, and it's what makes you feel good. But it's also cost me relationships through writing about this. I've lost or I've had some strange relationships because you're not telling it right? That's not how it happened. how dare you say this? What would dad say? You know, like things like that. And those aren't word for word, so please don't go, you know, attacking my siblings. But I've lost several relationships, but I've also gained so many honest relationships that I wouldn't trade for the world. And I think at the end of the day, I'd rather be around the people that are telling the truth than not hiding it and having a fucking blast, right? When you live in the honest, open world, nothing can ruin your day except, you know, like puddles or, you know, regular things that might happen. But emotional things aren't going to bother you because you're set. You have your mind right. You have your heart right. You know that you're living as best as you can with integrity and dignity to what it is you believe. And so it's been cool to like share that with a lot of artists, a lot of creatives, and a lot of people are creative. They just hide it. A lot of people are poets underneath it all. So it's been really nice to share and worth it. And I hope that it just motivates others when they have it in their hands to maybe say they're sorry to someone or tell someone why they acted like a jerk. Or maybe not say it at all and just say, can I hug you? Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
your wonderful spirit and your poems. And we're all going to be holding copies very soon. We love you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's not the end. It's only the end of Bree's part. Next.
Can I just say, Bree, you're the biggest hype person, one of the biggest hype people I've ever met. So it's true. Like,
exactly.
so we're here to hype you. And Miriam as well. Because you're both amazing. Bree, you're amazing. I'll hype you, Miriam, at your thing. And I'm so proud to have you as my friend. And one day we'll meet. IRL. This has been amazing, and I miss hearing your poems. And Melissa, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the poem that you read. I miss your poems as well.
Thank you, Cesar. Thank you for being here. Okay, everybody, let's do one last clap and then I'm going to stop recording and we'll take a quick break. Yay, Bree!